And then this is, now what's interesting is the verses in the Quran that, if you look at all the deviant sects of Islam, all of them, without exception, focused on these verses. All of them. You look at every single deviant sect in the history of Islam, and they take hazy verses and they tell you what they mean. So the Qadariyya said, Allah said this, and that's why we say that there's no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is completely left human beings free to do whatever they want. There's nothing stopping them from doing what they want. The Jabriyya said the opposite. And they used these verses in the Quran. Everybody used what they wanted. Now, Allah says, immediately after that, وَمَا يَذَّكَّرُ إِلَّا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. And the only people that really understand this, the only people that really recollect what's being said here, are the people who use their intellects. If you don't have intellect when coming to the Quran leads people astray. The Quran becomes a book that you can find countless things in it. It's a holistic book. If you take part of أَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْضِ. Do you believe in some of the book and reject other parts of the book? And that's what some of these sects do, because the people that say God is in a direction, and there are people, we have people, that's a popular madhab these days. There are people that say God is in a physical direction, which is folk, which is very weird because China's under us. Now we know that the earth is round, so that becomes a problem for people that think, because our up is their down, and their up is our down. There's people that think that God physically descends to the lowest heaven in the last third of the night, because it's a hadith in al-Bukhari. Inna Rabbana la yanziru kulla laylatin ila sama'i dunya. God comes down to the... But now we know that the third part of the night is coming in every instant. Because I can call people throughout the day, and there's a third part of the night somewhere on this planet every instant. So what does that mean? He's always doing that? I mean, this is, these people, naqal is tradition. It's what's handed down. Aqal is intellect. It's how you interpret the tradition. Naqal heads are people that don't use their aqal. They don't use the aqal. It's just naqal. Really, it's a problem. So, unfortunately, for some reason or another, there are a lot of people, but people want simplicity. They want to just reduce everything to black and white. It's the fundamental impulse. It's that Protestant impulse of rejecting nuances, rejecting the fact that the world is not melodramatic. The world is not black and white. There are hues and shades. There's diversity. And things just aren't as clear as people like to make them out to be. That there are mutashabihat in life. The Prophet said, إِنَّ الْحَلَالَ بَيِّنٌ وَإِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّنٌ وَبَيْنُهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُتَشَابِهَاتٍ in a riwayah and mushtabihat in another riwayah. That the halal is clear and the haram is clear. And between them are hazy things. There's gray areas. People want it. Is it halal, haram? That's it. That's what people want. Halal, haram. People ask you a question, you say, there's a difference of opinion. Don't tell me, is it halal or haram? It's just not that simple. If you want a simpleton's religion, you're in the wrong religion. This is not a religion for simple people, dummies. There are people that can be in Islam and be simple, that's fine, but they can't reduce the religion to their level. The religion is celestial. If they want to pull it down to their terrestrial level, then they're doing a grave disservice to this religion, because it's something very high. And that's why these ulama who, I'll give you an example. Fakhruddin al-Razi said about the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put hazy verses in there. He said God could have just made it all black and white. Do this, 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 and this. Don't do this, this, and that. And made it all clear. Because there's things, the Prophet ﷺ said, God told you some things. And he said, وَسَكَتَ عَنْ أَشْيَاءَ رَحْمَةً لَكُمْ. He was silent about things as a mercy to you. فَلَا تَبْحَثُوا عَنْهَا أَوْ لَا تَسَرُوا عَنْهَا. Don't seek them out, those things that God was silent about. Just leave that. It's mercy of God. The Prophet said, حَيَاتِي خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَمَوْتِي خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ تُحْدِثُونَ فَيُحْدَثَ لَكُمْ. My life is good for you, but my death is also good for you, because you do things and then you get rulings about them. So when the Prophet was alive, people would do things and then they'd get a ruling to say you can't do that. So if the Prophet, what he was saying was, if I stayed with you, it would just get too overwhelming. In fact, one man came to the Prophet and he said, كَثُرَتْ عَلَيَّ شَرَائِعُ الْإِسْلَامِ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. The rules have gotten too much for me. فَدُلَّنِي عَلَى شَيْءٍ أَتَشَبَّثُ بِهِ. Give me something that I can cling to, and I'm going to be saved by it. And he said, لَا يَزَالُ لِسَانُكَ رَطْبًا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. May your tongue always be moist with the remembrance of God. It's like, and that is just a reminder that, you can attempt to follow all the rules. The Prophet ﷺ said, أَوْغِلُوا فِي هَذَا الدِّينِ بِالرِّفْقِ. Enter into this deen gently. فَلَنْ يُشَادَّ الدِّينَ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا غَلَبَهُ. Because nobody tries to take on this religion in its entirety except he will be completely overwhelmed. Completely overwhelmed. There are doors to paradise. There's a door of charity. Some people that door's not open to. Some people it's open to. But then there's the door of fasting. Some people that door's not open to. Other people, that's the door they go to paradise by. The 8 doors. And Abu Bakr said, does anybody go through all 8? And he said, yes, and I hope that you'll be one of them. But Abu Bakr did more before Fajr than most people do in their month. Because we know, people wonder how Abu Bakr, the Prophet said, if my Ummah's faith was put in one scale and Abu Bakr's in the other scale, Abu Bakr would outweigh them. At Fajr, the Prophet once asked, did anybody visit a sick person this morning? Abu Bakr, I did, Ya Rasulullah. He said, did anybody give charity this morning? Abu Bakr, I did, Ya Rasulullah. Did anybody wake up fasting this morning? Abu Bakr, I did, Ya Rasulullah. Did anybody follow a funeral janazah this morning? Abu Bakr, I did, Ya Rasulullah. This was before Fajr. And that's why when Omar wanted, he thought, okay, I'm going to get him this time. Tabuk. Really, Omar used to compete, he wanted, because he was the second best, and he wanted, it's like the one that tries harder, the second person. And he said, Tabuk, I'm going to give half my money for this expedition, and I'm going to finally get Abu Bakr. I'll outdo him this time. So he brings half his money, just really excited, and Prophet, mashallah. And then Abu Bakr comes and puts his money down. The Prophet said to Omar, what did you leave for your family? He said, I left half. And then he looked at Abu Bakr and he said, what did you leave for your family? He said, Taraktu lahum Allah wa rasuluhu. I left for them God and His Messenger. He gave it all. And at that point, Omar said, I'm never going to try to compete with this man. So, those, this modern impulse to reduce this religion to slogans, to reduce it to simplistic formulas, it's not going to work. And like I said, it's a disservice to the religion. Fakhruddin al-Razi said the reason that Allah has given us this complexity is because, he gives several reasons, but among them he says, is, had it all been spelled out, black and white, no difficulties, we would have been like automatons. There would have been no diversity. There would only been one madhab, one way of doing things, and everybody had to follow it. That's not human nature. You will never have all of humanity agreeing on any one thing. And so diversity is our nature. There are people that are strict, so there's all these hadith that suit those strict people. There are people that are lenient. There's all these other hadiths that suit those lenient people. There are people that really like to be strict on themselves and on others. And there's all these hadiths that they're going to find that they fit them perfectly. They seem to know all those hadiths. They don't know any of the other hadiths about leniency and being, but they know all those. That's the vastness of Islam. Is that, and then there's people that incline towards certain things that don't incline towards other things. And it's all there in the Prophet ﷺ Sunnah. So he says that vastness is the universality of Islam. And when you have a book that is nuanced, that is subtle, that can be interpreted on many different levels, it's going to encourage the universality. It's going to complement that aspect of humanity. And then he says another important aspect is that everybody wants to prove their point. So when they take a position about something in the Quran, they're going to work really hard to strengthen their position. So it forces a type of study. If everybody agreed on it, people wouldn't be studying. Like today, for the people that were in my Maliki class, I was talking about the difference between the sadl and the qabd. If there wasn't a difference of opinion, everybody would just be doing this and nobody would know why they're doing it other than that's what everybody does. But because there's a difference of opinion, it forces you to look at the hadiths, it forces you to know the people that had this opinion, why they had that opinion, and then what their dalil was and why. And so it creates a type of intellectual engagement with the tradition that would not otherwise exist, which is very important. I mean, one of the things, people tell me all the time, Muslims are always arguing over stupid things, like the moon sighting. Every year we have this argument. Why can't we just work it out? Well, it is amazing that we are an ummah that still cares about these things that much to where they're actually important. Because a lot of religions don't even care about these things anymore, and they're like, who cares? What's the big deal? And that's their attitude towards their religion. But for Muslims, they do care. They want to do the right thing, and there's different opinions about what the right thing is, and they get passionate about it. Now, sometimes they become overzealous, and that's a problem. But better in some ways to be overzealous than to be dead spiritually as a community, to not have any real zeal about your faith or your religion. So I don't think that's a negative about the Muslims. What we're lacking is civil society. What we're lacking is adab al-ikhtilaf. And one could argue that we've never had it universally in the Muslim Ummah. I'll give you a few examples just to point this out. Imam At-Tabari, his house was stoned by students of the Hanbali Madrasa in Iraq when he was teaching, because he didn't consider Ahmad a faqih. So they went and stoned his house. Imam al-Nasa'i was stomped to death by one of the greatest muhaddithin in Muslim history. He was literally stomped to death in a masjid. So it's not like there hasn't been these terrible things that have happened in our history. There have been terrible things. And you'll find these in all religious traditions. When you get fanatics, when you get idiots, when you get knuckleheads that have no other way, of understanding something except their limited way, this provincial attitude, and that somehow it's my religious duty to stomp out any other way of viewing it. It's a problem. Religion becomes poisonous. As far as I'm concerned, it actually becomes a source of human suffering as opposed to a source of human enlightenment, of actually elevating people's states, of getting them closer to God. It actually, it distances them from God. They become harsh, hard-hearted. And that's why immediately after this verse, first of all, it warns us about people. Whenever you find people that are interested in, these verses in the Quran that are hazy, and they want you to make sure you know that they mean exactly what they say they mean, in other words, that they're muhkamat, the first thing, know that they're from the people of fitna, that Allah warns against, and that they have deviation in their hearts, they have zayg in their hearts. But the second thing, know that they don't have intellect, because Allah praises the people of intellect at the end of those verses, saying that the people that really understand this are people of intellect, because they know that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, istawa ala al-arsh, that He's upon a throne, that they know by their intellect that it is absolutely inconceivable for the infinite creator of the heavens and the earth to be limited by time or space, to be mahmul, to be carried on anything. They know that. But they're not going to deny that verse, because that verse is there. So they say, we believe in it, and we know it doesn't mean what it appears to mean, because with God there is no how. And this is what Imam Malik, when he was asked, Kayf al-istiwa, how did God istawa, which in Arabic can mean to sit. So he asked, how did God do this istiwa? And Imam Malik said, al-istiwa ma'loom. The istiwa is known. In other words, that it's in the Quran. Wal kayfa ghayru ma'qul. And the how is completely irrational. It's inconceivable. And in a riwayah majhul, it's not something you could ever know what that means. And then he said, وَالسُّؤَالُ عَنْهُ بِدْعَةٌ. And to ask about it is a bid'ah. It's an innovation. Because none of the Salaf asked about it. That was Imam Malik's position. So the only reason I'm focusing on this is because this is a problem in our time. That's the only reason. I would pass over these a lot quicker, but you need to understand that there are people out there that are presenting a position, and they're saying this is the position of the first community, and it's not. It's a deviant position. And they can call us deviants. That's fine. Allah says, I'm gonna settle this on the Day of Judgment. So you're a deviant, I'm a deviant, fine. We'll wait. Let's just act civilly towards each other. I'm gonna pray next to you in the masjid. I'll break my Ramadan fast with you. I'll say Assalamu alaikum, and we'll be friends. You're a deviant, I'm a deviant. But on Yawm al-Qiyamah, we'll see who the deviant is. And I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to wait. But if defending God's vastness is deviancy, I'm willing to be a deviant.